For our next reading and writing lesson, we're on to subject modifier placement, which is the fourth of 5 subcategories of form, structure, and sense, the 9th overall theme of the reading and writing section. Subject modifier placement is on page 21 of our Triple T document. So by now you're very comfortable with the fact that we right away go ahead and read that single sentence question that's presented after the paragraph so that we know what kind of question we're getting into and we can calibrate our minds accordingly. So when we see which choice completes the text so that it conforms to the conventions of standard English, the unfortunate thing there is we know that the conventions of standard English could be any one of these 8 themes. So how are we supposed to figure out which of these 8 themes it is? Well, unlike our typical recommendation to avoid looking at the answer options right away for a conventions of standard English question, we always want to look at the answer options right away to determine which kind of grammar question we're dealing with. So we'll know it's a subject modifier placement question if the answer options contain more than just a few words. Notice these answer options are quite wordy. And then also if the answer options rearrange words or phrases in different order. And notice in our example, you have this Rabinal Achi, is how I'm going to pronounce it, but you have it located at the beginning here. You have it at the end in options B and C. You have it toward the end in option D. And then same thing with this name. You have it located kind of toward the middle, front, middle, end. So this matches perfectly with the subject modifier placement question. Now, what's really important to keep in mind is the word or words immediately after the comma should be the noun that the dependent clause leading up to the comma is describing, in other words, is modifying. So let's look at this example. One of the most spoken languages in the world, Spanish, is extremely influential and relevant. So notice the Spanish language is the correct subject of the modifier, one of the most spoken languages in the world. Anything else coming after the comma would be what we call a misplaced modifier. And all the incorrect answer options are going to contain misplaced modifiers for a subject modifier placement question. So here's an example of the previous topic, but with a misplaced modifier. One of the most spoken languages in the world, Spanish's influence and relevance is rapidly growing. Well, Spanish's influence isn't one of the most spoken languages in the world. So we call that a misplaced modifier, and we'd be able to rule that out of the options. So let's look at this particular example. Rabinal Achi is a pre-colonial Maya dance drama performed annually in Rabinal, a town in the Guatemalan highlands. Fun fact, I actually went on a mission trip for 2 months in Guatemala in 2006, and I went back a couple times after that. I love Guatemala. Based on events that occurred when Rabinal was a city-state ruled by a king. And now here's what's important. Notice, you got to be really clear. What are we talking about? What is based on events that occurred when Rabinal was a city-state ruled by a king? Well, we've already talked about this pre-colonial Maya dance drama called Rabinal Achi. So what should come right after the comma? The thing that's based on events, right? This drama. So let's right away go to the answer options and start ruling some things out here. So notice option A does have Rabinal Achi at the beginning. In other words, right after this comma here, which is what we want. So we'll keep it in the running. Every other option throws Rabinal Achi in a different location, making options B, C, and D all examples of misplaced modifiers, where instead they're saying that based on events, this person as if he were the drama. That doesn't make sense. Same thing here, it talks about the military leader, which is this Kiche Achi, but that's not what we're referring to. We're referring to the actual dance drama. And then option C doesn't make sense either. Based on events, there was the military leader. No, we're talking about the drama. So we eliminate B, C, and D, and that makes A the correct answer. And remember, you got this.